two more things to be understood about section 141. Mark the words 5 or more. This means that an assembly of less than 5 or more persons cannot be unlawful assembly. The second thing to be noted is that mere physical presence in the unlawful assembly will not make it will not be sufficient to make it punishable. The member of the unlawful assembly must share what is called as a common object. A common object. Now, having understood that, we move on to section 142. Now, please bear in mind that in this chapter of Indian Penal Code, the next section is built upon the previous one. So we go brick by brick approach. So having understood the concept of unlawful assembly, let us now see what it means to be a member of unlawful assembly. So going by the words of section 142, being a member of unlawful assembly involves two things. The first is awareness of the facts which render an unlawful assembly an unlawful. So awareness of facts is the first thing. Let us put it like this. This is one. The second important ingredient is intentionally joining or continuing in it. So if these two factors are there, second is intentional joining or continuing in it. Intentional joining or this will make the person a member of unlawful assembly. So whenever now in the next portion of this chapter of Indian Penal Code, or maybe in the entire Indian Penal Code, the words unlawful assembly occur, you will understand it to mean all that is said in section 141. All that goes to make an assembly unlawful as described in section 141. And whenever the words member of unlawful assembly occur, you will understand to mean what is described in section 142. That is, awareness of the facts which render any assembly an unlawful assembly. And second is intention to join it or continue in it. In that case, that person is said to be a member of unlawful assembly. Having understood that, having understood what is an unlawful assembly and what it means to be a member of unlawful assembly, it should not be difficult to understand the punishment section, that is section 143. That section declares that whoever is a member of unlawful assembly, so two things should combine. There should be an unlawful assembly and the person should be a member of it. So mere membership of the unlawful assembly is made punishable with imprisonment of either description, which may extend to 6 months, or with fine or with both. So 6 months punishment is prescribed for this offense. So you can see that merely being a member of unlawful assembly is made an offense, though a little bit milder one. Punishment is only 6 months. Now we move to section 141. This section is about punishing something more than an unlawful assembly. For example, it is like unlawful assembly plus the serious thing mentioned in section 141. What is that? Let us see. Joining unlawful assembly armed with deadly weapon. So whoever armed with a deadly weapon or with anything which used as a weapon of offense is likely to cause death is a member of unlawful assembly. Then he shall be punished with imprisonment which may extend to 2 years, or with fine or with both. So the important ingredient for this section are: firstly, there should be an unlawful assembly. Secondly, the person who is accused of offense under this section should have been armed with deadly weapon or with anything which used as a weapon of offense is likely to cause death. So deadliness is there with regard to weapon. So if someone joins, if someone is joins or continues to be a member of an unlawful assembly armed with deadly weapon or anything which can cause death, he shall be punished with 2 years imprisonment. Not very difficult to understand. We move to section 145. Now it's possible that sometimes there is an unlawful assembly and the police force comes and commands the unlawful assembly to disperse. Now if somebody, instead of dispersing, joins or continues to be a member of the unlawful assembly, fully knowing that that unlawful assembly has been commanded to disperse, then that person is liable for punishment under this section. So this section 145 creates a separate offense. Let us see. Whoever joins or continues, these are two important words. A person may not be initially a member of an unlawful assembly, but having commanded to disperse an unlawful assembly, later on if the person joins it, that is also sufficient, or continues in an unlawful assembly. Knowing, now see, for someone to be charged with offense under this section, the person accused should have knowledge that the unlawful assembly has been commanded in lawful manner to disperse. Disperse means to go away, to dissolve, to bring an end, to bring to an end the nature of unlawful assembly as unlawful. In that case, the person shall be punished with imprisonment which may extend to 2 years. So this is another offense. Now we move to the next section, that is rioting. Not difficult to understand. It is just like unlawful assembly plus, to put it simply, it is unlawful assembly plus use of or force or violence by unlawful assembly. That makes it the offense of rioting. Now, what this section says is that whenever force or violence, these two words are important, force or violence should have been used by an unlawful assembly to make it an offense of rioting, or by any member thereof in prosecution of common object of such assembly. Now, mere use of force or violence without prosecution of common object will not make it an offense of rioting. Use of force or violence must be for achievement of the common object of such an unlawful assembly. So, every member of such unlawful assembly is guilty of the offense of rioting. This section is declaring this, that every member of such assembly who may not use force or violence, but the force or violence is used by other members of unlawful assembly, then that person who has not used any such force or violence still is guilty of the offense of rioting. Now, rioting, you understand, what is riot? In local language, riot means जहां कोई जमावड़ा होता है और वो दंगा फसाद करता है। एक जमावड़ा दंगा करता है, उसे कहते हैं रायोटिंग। तो रायोटिंग के बारे में हर कोई ऐसा मेंबर अनलॉफुल असेंबली का जो भले ही खुद फोर्स और वायलेंस यूज ना किया हो, मगर उस अनलॉफुल असेंबली के किसी भी मेंबर ने अगर फोर्स और वायलेंस यूज किया है, तो हर कोई group member of that unlawful assembly is guilty of offense of rioting. तो अगर वो guilty है, if that person is guilty of offense of rioting, तो what is the punishment? The punishment is imprisonment, which is extendable to 2 years as prescribed in section 147. तो हमने देखा rioting and punishment for rioting. अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now next is section 148, rioting armed with deadly weapon. Like we have seen previously, being a member of unlawful assembly armed with deadly weapon. Now it goes one step further. It talks about rioting armed with deadly weapon. So what it says, whoever is guilty of rioting, so this should be the first requirement. The person should be guilty of rioting first. Being armed with a deadly weapon or with anything which used as a weapon of offense is likely to cause death shall be punished with imprisonment of either description which may extend to 3 years. This is not difficult to understand. It is like rioting plus, to put it in simple words, rioting plus being armed with deadly weapon. Hmm. This makes a serious offense as in case of section 148.